There we go.
I think we're set to go.
Let's do it.
We set to go?
Yes, Bruce, we're all set.
Okay, I'm still missing one commissioner, but maybe they're on. Okay, introduction, roll call, minutes of previous meeting. We all have a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting. Do we have any additions or corrections?
Move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Same thing with the fiscal actions report. We all had a copy. Any additions or corrections?
Motion.
Move to.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Project review actions report resolution. Joe?
Yeah, resolution 2021-41, accept the project review actions report. Whereas the commission has received and reviewed the project review actions report prepared by the staff and dated 9/21/2021. And whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review actions report. Now therefore be resolved that the commission directs that the project review actions report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the project review actions report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. First project is the dock modification submitted by Scott Carroll and Christine Walter, Town of Queensbury. Joe Doohan, do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. We have an
Hi, Joe.
application from Scott Carroll for a dock modification. They are authorized with a pre-existing covered E-shaped dock. They've applied for modification for a covered U-shaped dock. The dock complies with commission regulations, but we've received some comments from the neighbors, the O'Learys, concerning potential visual impacts. And so this application is before you to weigh those visual impacts. We did ask the applicant to provide visual simulation, which is in your packet. And I can see that Mr. Carroll is here. So if you'd like to, or if you have a representative, I'd invite you to unmute your microphone and just speak to the application for a minute, if you'd like, Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, hi, this is Nathan Hall from Stafford, Carr and McNally. I'm representing Mr. Carroll and Ms. Malta on this application. Appreciate the commission's time. Just a few things that I'd like to add. My clients have put a lot of work into this dock. They've worked with Joe to come up with a good application, and we think that this represents something that the commission would be really excited about. My clients are removing a non-conformity, well, several non-conformities. Currently, the E-shaped dock that they're approved for, as the commission is aware, is not, allowed by regulations any longer, as well as the fact that the current U-shape in the water encroaches on the northern property line. This would put it back within the setbacks. Likewise, if they did put the additional finger on the dock for an E-shaped dock, that would be within both setbacks, north and south. So this proposal removes any encroachment into setbacks. My clients have reduced the footprint already with comments from the public and in concert with feedback from commission staff. They're below the height requirement. They've kept the height even. I think it's exactly the same as their neighbor's deck. So they could go higher, but they're trying to reach a fair compromise. They could go wider, but again, they're reaching a fair compromise. They're using the Invisalign rail system to, again, reduce impact visually for neighbors. We welcome any questions and comments from the commissioners. I know that a few of you visited the site, which, my clients were very pleased with. It is a irregular shoreline in that area, which, goes both ways. It's V-shaped. So, my clients, the property is a parallel here between the two neighbors, and my clients have been cognizant of that. And that's part of the reason, they're looking to do something similar to what the neighbors have, as well as, not built out to the maximum extent allowed by the regulations. So yeah, that's the project. If my clients have anything to add, in addition, they are on this call, and we're happy to provide any feedback that the commission is looking for.
Thanks, Nathan. I think you represented us well there, and if there are any questions we can help answer, we'll stand by.
Any questions from the commissioners? Yeah, apparently. Justin, do you know if anybody in the audience that has anything to say about this?
I haven't received any messages or anything like that. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make a comment, feel free to unmute yourself.
I think I'm unmuted.
Okay, Carl, I see you there.
I'm Carl Brenneisen from Best Built Docks. I'm could be the one building the docks. And again, Nathan did a great job. I think what Scott and his wife want here is nothing out of the ordinary. And actually, there was another one of the neighbors, door or two down, just had one of theirs done. Of course, they don't have any visibility issues, but like Nathan said, there's already a sort of an encroachment on the north property line. By moving the docks over to the center, I think that's a home run, gets everything back to normal setbacks, and they aren't really asking for a lot more or less than what they're allowed. So, and the aircraft cable railing systems, which we do a lot of on boathouse rooftops, allow the other neighbors to still have a view up the lake as well. So again, just in regards to what Nathan said, I think everything he said was perfect. And if there's no other objections, we're hoping to get this project going.
Any other comments?
Morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Crow. I represent the adjoining property owners, Stephen and Carla O'Leary. I'd just like to speak briefly. We had presented some written comments, and I don't want to go over that ad nauseum, but I do want to speak about some of the responses to those comments, as well as some of the items that were mentioned previously on the call. First of all, I think it's important to reiterate that my clients are not opposed to the concept of what the applicants are seeking. They're opposed to this specific proposal. And as it's been acknowledged, the underlying source of the contention here is really the irregular shaped shoreline in this location. So it's the fact that we're in a unique natural setting that has presented what my clients view as an undue visual hardship. We acknowledge that the application as it is proposed meets the quantitative requirements. It's within the setbacks. It meets the dimensional requirements. But there's a flip side to that. There's also a qualitative requirement, and that's laid out in your regulations, 646, I want to say 1.6A. And that's to give relief even in a situation such as this, where you meet all those dimensional requirements. If there's an undue impact to the, in this case, visual setting, a project that can be denied. And that's what we're seeing here. In fact, I think the applicant, in trying to meet the requirements, mentioning that they're moving the dock and the U-shaped dock further to the south, actually makes the visual impact worse. And so as they're moving it back to try and adhere to the commission's dimensional requirements, they're making that qualitative requirement worse. And really what we see is, first of all, the views in this area are to the northwest. And that can be seen both by my client's property and their dock, as well as the applicants, the way that the applicant's house is sited on the parcel. It's not perpendicular to the shoreline or parallel to the lot lines. Everything is angled up to the north. And so what you have then in the situation here where there's the V in the shoreline is that while their proposal is meeting the dimensional requirements, it's jutting directly in front of my client's property, and specifically the views. So again, in meeting all those dimensional requirements, we're actually creating another hardship. And what we believe is that it's completely able to be mitigated. And that's, I guess, why I would say this is an undue hardship, because there are certain things that could be done. And at this point, I don't see that any of those have been. What the applicant has mentioned is that the dock could actually be wider, that the E-shaped dock, which was grandfathered, is wider than what they're currently proposing. But that does not have any impact on the visual aspect of this project. What's affecting the visual impact is the height of the sun deck and the distance out into the lake. Neither one of those is being addressed by the applicant. They're saying they're not going as high as they could be, but that doesn't mean that it's not creating that visual hardship. What they've presented in terms of how the grandfathered E-shaped dock would appear is actually a preferable setup from my client's perspective. The lower canopy docks, which is what they are approved for, would not present the type of visual impact that we're seeing with the sun deck. So, to the extent that they believe that that complying with the E-shaped covered canopy docks is worse for my client is simply untrue. Those are not as far out into the lake, and they're lower in height. The other aspect that was addressed was the applicant presented some of their visual renderings. And while we have pictures of what the sun deck may look like and what it would look like compared to the E-dock with the canopy covers, we don't have any kind of explanation from Studio A regarding the dimensions, regarding how this would be an accurate representation of it. We're simply left with two contradicting renderings. The one from my client and the one from Studio A. And so, I believe that just to arbitrarily choose one of those renderings to be more accurate over the other at this point is implausible. What we would need is, in order, if we were going to determine which one of these renderings more accurately depicts the hardship on the views and the impact on the views, we'd have to have a public hearing as provided by your regulations 645-5.6 to figure out which of these renderings is more accurate. The final thing that I'll say is that the one thing that wasn't addressed in our comments was the reasonable alternatives, what we believe are reasonable alternatives. To that extent, my clients, upon reviewing the responses that the applicant proposed, and again, acknowledging that this is essentially being created by the shape of the shoreline, they're willing to work with the applicant, and they would be agreeable to a reconfigured plan. If the top of the railing, so that the tallest part of the structure, if that were lowered to 12 feet, it's currently at about 14.5 or somewhere in that range. If we're lowered to about 12 feet and the configuration adjusted to more closely resemble that E-shaped position, so it's not jutting out into the lake as far, my clients would be fine with that. We would accept the fact that they would have a sun deck. There would be some impact to my clients' views, but not to the extent where they're almost completely eliminated. And so, again, we think that there are reasonable alternatives here. A ground level sun deck, any type of extension of the sun deck coming off of their house, as well as just reconfiguring what they currently have. Any of those options, if they were explored, would result in our opposition going away. Thank you for your time, and I do want to turn over, I believe that Steve O'Leary will make a few comments.
Are there any other comments?
Yes, I would like to say a few words.
Okay,
My name is Steve O'Leary. This is my wife, Carla. We're the property owners at 77 Brayton Lane, which is the property that's directly next door to the Carrolls at 73 Brayton Lane. We purchased our home in 2013. Currently, we are there part-time. We spend as much time as we can there, and we look forward to retiring there in about 5 years. Obviously, it's a beautiful, beautiful spot, and it's a dream come true to have that home there, and we love it more than words can say. I want to start by thanking the commissioners for your time and consideration in this matter. Obviously, it's of great importance to us and to the Carrolls, and I'd like to appreciate any consideration that you could lend us towards the decision. Again, I want to reiterate that we're not opposed to the Carrolls having a new dock and a sun deck. We simply are requesting that whatever project be approved and constructed be done so in a way that it gives the minimum negative effect on us. If you look at the renderings that were provided either by us or by the Carrolls, the damage to our views is undeniable. It's just simply cannot be denied. We're just asking that we look for a way to minimize the impact on our property and on our views going forward with what is approved and constructed. The idea of that, with all due respect to the gentleman who was building the dock, when he said that moving it to the right in front of our views was a home run, well, it might be a home run from his perspective. It certainly isn't from ours. That's exactly the issue. So if we were to keep, if the Carrolls were to construct their new dock where their old dock currently resides and keep the height at around 12 feet, that would go a long way towards alleviating any of our concerns. And I would be more than happy to buy them a bottle of champagne and celebrate with them when their dock is constructed. Again, I would just like to say that I would just like to extend my gratitude to the board for their time consideration at this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Are there other comments? See any comments, Justin?
Not at this time, Bruce.
Okay,
I'd just like the opportunity to respond briefly, board. Will allow it.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Sure. I understand that, a project comes before the board in kind of its final iteration a little bit, hopefully. And, but what I want to impress upon the board is that what's before you now is, in our opinion, a reasonable compromise. We've again gone back and forth with staff, with Joe Thuen, with Roger Smith, to come up with something that makes sense. As I said, my clients initially had it taller, had it wider, and they've scaled it back to address concerns that the neighbors had. As far as the current location goes, I stand by with what the builder said, that this is a good result, in that where my client's deck is now is encroaching on the northern setback property line. So I think my clients, the commission, all have an incentive here to get this within the scope of the property lines here, where it's supposed to be. In doing that, acknowledging that does move it closer to the O'Leary's property, but at the same time, again, we're not going as high as we could. We've scaled that down. We've gone Invisalign railing to minimize encumbrance from wooden railings or anything like that. There is already been mitigation done to address those concerns. The O'Leary's were aware of the property lines and the way this is configured when they bought it. And certainly we're not going higher than their dock. We're not trying to build some behemoth here that blocks out the sun. We're keeping it consistent with everything else around here, reasonable, and with full consideration and respect for neighboring property rights on both sides of this property. That's all. Thank you.
Any further comments?
I'd like to say one more thing. The property to the north would be really unaffected if it stayed in the same spot. It's where it is right now will be the grandfathered dock where it was already. So it wouldn't be encroaching anything. That's where it is now. And it doesn't really affect the property to the north. And I know that they've worked really hard, but we love it there. We want everyone to be happy. And last night we submitted like a paper type of plan. I don't know if everyone received that, of like a dock that we would approve of. And the dock actually is wider. It's just a little lower because of the view shed, but it stays in the exact same spot, and they actually get a bigger dock from the ones that we submitted last night for a hypothetical. Thank you.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I'll just jump in one more time. And I understand the O'Leary situation here. And in the same vein, the Carrolls have a place that they will hopefully retire to as well. But where your location is, everybody's looking up that northern view. If every boathouse has to be incrementally smaller so the people behind it get the view as well, by the time you get down 4 or 5 docks down, you're going to have like a 4-foot high boathouse. So, and as a builder, we can build anything. And, I hope everybody comes out of this happy and gets the right results, because nobody wants any, bad will or anything like that. Over on the other side of Cleverdale, where we've done some boathouse rooftops over, a lot of the customers over there looking southward, because the angles of their docks, because of the way they were positioned or grandfathered in, they have a lot of issues getting boats in because of the angles. So, in the Carrolls instance, by moving the docks over, and again, they don't have a bad access right now, but by moving it over so it's straight, similar to the O'Leary's next door, and getting it off the property line, that alleviates some of the park commission's stuff. Because once these docks are built, they're pretty much there. They're not going to be changed next year or the year after. They're a 30, 50, hopefully longer year lasting product. So again, I hope everybody can come to some sort of agreement here as far as the angle or the setbacks, and then as well the height of the roof. Like Nathan was saying, I'm not sure exactly of all adjustments or changes they've made along the way to try to get this approved. But yes, coming down in height a little bit on the rooftop itself will still allow the O'Learys to have their view, especially with the aircraft cable there. And again, when the Carrolls are up there, they obviously want to have a view too. Now they've got a neighbor that on the other side, the northern side, that has the same sort of structure. So they're going to be blocked a little bit too, due to that same situation. So I just think overall, I just hope everybody can come to a nice, happy agreement here, because we would love to get this project underway as well. Because they've been waiting. This has been over a year now. We've been working on this with the Carrolls. So we're hoping we're at that point. And I honestly, I do hope everybody comes to a nice agreement and can be happy and shake hands on this. That's just some of my professional input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have you
Carl. I would just like to, if I could just say, I think in order to build a sun deck in the footprint where the dock exists now would require a variance. So that would really push the project out further to get that variance approved. I think we're on our 15th revision, working back with the commission. So we worked pretty diligently with them. I noted 9 mitigating steps that we took already. I think, just the extra years, weather on the dock makes it so that we have to do something. Some of the boards, as we, put our cover on our boat, are crumbling. So we're going to have to make a change in the immediate future. So we're just hoping to, get the dock that we're happy with underway. That's it. Thank you.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
further
if
comments?
I may, my clients would like nothing more than to reach what the contractor was discussing in agreement, and would like to do that as soon as possible, so that the Carrolls can rebuild their dock. There's nothing that my clients would like more than to have the neighbors have the dock and even have a sun deck. They would just like it to not block off their view. And once again, I think this is more of a factor of the unique shoreline situation that we find ourselves in. And so that doesn't follow all the way up to the north. This V, which Mr. Hall alluded to, is specifically between the two properties. And that's really what's causing the issue here. And for situations like this, there is that pressure relief valve through either a variance, which my clients would, be happy to support, or through a public hearing to determine to what extent the visual impact actually is encroaching on, my client's view shed. So we'd love to avoid that. We'd love to reach an agreement with the Carrolls, and hope that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Any comments from the commissioner? Joe, I'd like to hear from you from the site visit on a visual impact.
Yeah, me too, Joe.
Yeah, okay. There's several of us that went to the site. And I also might say that the visualization that Studio A provided was very helpful. I even talked to them personally. And what they did is they basically took the measurements and projected it at the site. So we looked at the site. We both went to both property owners. I think that the improvement in reducing the and making the dock more compliant by moving the dock a little bit south is probably a good idea. I am not in favor of reducing the height of the dock, because we've had several applications recently over the last year that have come in with boats that have bimmies on it, and now they want to raise the height of the sun deck. So I think that they've done several iterations to improve the visualization. And I might also say that this railing system really minimizes the impact of the height of the dock, because all you're doing is looking at the height of the deck itself, not the railings totally. And that's only maybe a foot higher than if you put in the old system itself. So I know that Ken was there. Maybe Ken could also speak to this at this point.
Yeah, as I recollect, the O'Leary dock is the one, the large boat, covered boathouse with the canvas canopy at the top of it. Just trying to get my mind aligned to what was there. And we took our liberties of walking up on their lawn and standing at their doorway and visualizing to the north. And I think a lot of us have been doing this long enough that we can kind of visualize in our mind where the views start and stop and that kind of thing. And I didn't see any radical improvement by moving the project at all. These dock and boathouse visual conversations and interactions are sometimes the most difficult part of the Park Commission's duties, because you never really know who's right. And you know what a 5-foot guy can see and what a 6-foot guy can't see, or vice versa. It's just difficult to put in writing. But I know that we were in full support of the project as it was proposed the day of visitation, which was, I think, a week ago yesterday. It's a lovely neighborhood, it really is.
Joe, how does the dock compare to the other docks in the neighborhood?
The proposed dock, as far as having a sun deck, and in fact, with the visual railings is probably is a good option, I thought. But both sides of the property have very similar docks.
Any further comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I just have one for Joe Toolen. Joe, as far as the legality of what's been proposed, if it wasn't for neighborhood issues, would this have been something that would have not come before the commission?
That's correct. Because it complies with all the dimensional requirements, this is something we would typically issue at the staff level. But because of the visual impact concerns, we always like to do due diligence and bring it to the board for everyone's consideration.
Right. And that alone is good, because part of our process is to hear from other folks concerned, adjoining property owners who have an interest. And we do take that into weight, but something that was submitted last night, I must have to apologize for. I didn't see any late submissions, and I don't think our rules really adapt to late submissions, so we can't even take that into consideration.
And I can summarize quickly. I wasn't at my desk yesterday afternoon. It came in, I think 1, and it looked like a similar dock configuration. I've just been kind of viewing it during our meeting. But I think it proposed a 12-foot high boathouse as compared to what's proposed right now. So basically just making it a little stouter and shorter, consistent with the discussion.
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I was at a site visit, and it just appears from those nice drawings that the new concept is going to enhance the area. And I do understand that it may be an obstruction of view when you're sitting in the O'Leary's front room. But if you're on their own dock on the top deck on the top of their boathouse, there's virtually no impact at all. So I think the new project is very conforming, and like Ken said, it is a lovely neighborhood, and I don't think it's going to do any negative impact on the whole setting of that neighborhood. Thank you.
Any further commissioners' comments? Joe, do you want to read the resolution?
Yes, resolution 2021-39, application number DWM 21-4077, dock modification. Applicant is Scott Carroll and Kristen Mota. Whereas the applicants have applied for a permit to modify a pre-existing dock and construct a covered U-shaped dock. And whereas the Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And whereas the commission has made a determination that the project is a type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NYCRR 617.5, and no further review is required for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3. Public notice has been published and distributed in accordance with the commission regulation. The proposed dock complies with the regulatory design requirements for docks at 646-1.1. And whereas the commission finds that the project will not have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources on the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Do I have a second? I see Kathy's seconded. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, show your right hand.
Where am I at?
Any opposed? The motion is carried. The application is approved as submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the Park Commission for all their work.
And the next project is a Class A Marina submitted by Prospect Mountain Ventures at Boats by George. Joe?
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an application for a new Class A Marina, as the Chairman mentioned, by Prospect Mountain Ventures, doing business as Boats by George. This is located at the Lake George Forum, which you all know is an existing commercial facility. They propose boat sales, marine product sales, outdoor and indoor boat storage, as well as stand-up paddleboard rentals and sales. I can see that Mr. Pencil is here, and I believe he may also be represented by Tom Jarrett. So either of you like to unmute yourself and talk a little bit more about the application, I'd invite you to do so.
Good morning, all. As Joe said, I am Tom Jarrett of Jarrett Engineers, and George Pencil, the owner of Boats by George, is on the call this morning. George recently purchased the forum, as you probably saw in the media accounts, and George would like to set this facility up as a sales facility, not service and not storage, not primarily storage. Toward that end, I want to make a couple of points. To support sales, he plans to enhance the building, not only the facade, but the interior of the building. He's already started working on repairing some of the building infrastructure, like the HVAC system, some painting and things like that, sprucing things up because the facility has not been operated at full capacity in some years. George also plans to enhance the exterior and especially the perimeter. He plans some wrought iron fence along the Canada Street side and along the southwest corner. And then near the Fort George Road entrance, some wrought iron fence. And then along the old parking lot on Fort George Road would be a security fence and a privacy fence. That would be a vinyl solid fence that would block views. Lastly, he plans to enhance some of the screening, the vegetative screening that was put in years ago when the forum was first built. And there are some gaps in that screening that he plans to fill in. So overall, he's going to try and make it a very attractive facility to draw customers into his new sales operation. And he plans an operation that is, well, let me back up. He's going to have roughly 15 persons in and out of this facility, operating the facility, and modest numbers of customers in and out each day. We're supporting the project with 78 permanent parking spaces, plus overflow in the rear if he doesn't need to store new boats in the rear parking lot. So there's plenty of parking. And we think overall, my last point is that we think there'll be only modest traffic in and out of this facility. We don't think it'll cause undue impacts. With that, George, do you want to add anything before we turn it over to the commissioners for questions?
Guess not. Bye, George.
No, I don't really feel that, I think we've been quite open with Joe and answered a lot of questions. And so I'd like to hear any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners?
We talked the other morning when we just strolled through there. We talked about traffic patterns, George. What would be your traffic patterns with your boats going to the lake and coming back to the facility?
You want to cover that, George? You want me to?
Well, you know, we look at the utilization of Route 9 directly onto Route 9. I would say that in some cases there will be boats that leave that will go to our marina. And when they go to our marina, we'll take a right on Route 9 and probably travel north slightly to the connecting roads to the beach road, and then hit 9L at the East Cove intersection. When we travel to and from the service center, we'll be coming out at the Route 9 exit and taking a left and going down to Route 149, and then traveling 149 to our service center in Fort Anne.
Yeah, I think that most important is we don't want to see any boat traffic on the Fort George Road. You know, that's in the summer, it's kind of a lot of pedestrians are there, and I think that the road is not really suited for a lot of boat traffic at this time. Is that amenable with you, Tom and George?
We don't see a lot of traffic on the Fort George Road except for customers. They may use that entrance and exit as they wish. I don't think that's an undue allowance. George primarily plans to use the Canada Street entrance for boat traffic, as that's the safest and best entrance. So I really don't see any problem with that, unless there's a problem on Route 9 on Canada Street where he would need to use Fort George Road. We don't think there's any reason to use Fort George Road for boat traffic.
Okay.
Well, there is another side to this. This is a boat showroom, and it's not a boat service center. We don't have boats going in and out and in and out and in and out. I mean, what we're going to have is, you know, maybe we'll sell 150 boats. And of that 150 boats, maybe only 100 of them will be at the showroom. And so, you know, we're talking about out of a 365-day year, possibly, you know, 100 times in and 100 times out, 200 boats. And that's not even a boat a day.
I think it'd be appropriate to simply comment that the Pencil family's been in business on Lake George for more years than I can count right to second. And I've never seen anything but a first-class operation at any one of their locations as far as the way it looks and the way it's operated. So it sounds like it's a good use for a property that needed to be found a good use for.
I would like to get the other commissioners' ideas about the Fort George Road. When we were there, I think we sort of hinted that that would be not a good idea to have boat traffic there. Granted, he's going to have storage for 55 boats. That's what the application said. So we would just like to see them always use Canada Street, Route 9.
I'd like you to understand also that, every boat that we sell goes to our marina on Cleverdale. And we've been doing that since 2005, when we purchased the marina 16 years ago. And there has not been a complaint or an incident about our traveling through that road. And that is a heavily walked and lots of pedestrian traffic as well. Now, but I did say that, our plan would be to use Route 9.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments from the commissioners?
I just say I kind of echo some of the things that Ken said, and while Joe, I agree with you. When we did the site visit, we were talking about Fort George Road and how narrow it is, but I think what I'm hearing from the applicant kind of makes sense to me. They're going to be using Canada Street primarily. It is the easiest way in and out of the site, and I think it's a great use of that site. I'm kind of excited to see it being used for something better, and so I'm in favor of it the way it is right now.
Any further comments from the commissioners?
Read the thing.
Well, Joe, I guess you have a
Resolution 2021-43. Application number M21-4014M1. Applicant is Prospect Mountain Ventures LLC, DBA Boats by George. Whereas the applicant has applied for a new Class A marina offering sales, boat storage, and stand-up paddleboard rentals. The Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. The commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NYCRR 617.5, and has, as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment. The action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3. Public notice has been published and distributed as required, whereas the applicant has demonstrated that the activity and facility comply with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NYCRR 646-1.2B. And whereas the commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Park Commission, Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
I have a second from Kathy. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor, or show a right hand? Opposed? The motion is carried. The application is approved as submitted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all your efforts.
Next item on the agenda is discussion of e-foils and hydrofoils. Dave, do you want to headline this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can open it up and I'm going to turn it right over to Lieutenant Johns. There's been an increase in use of a new craft on Lake George. Looks like a surfboard on a hydrofoil bottom, and it's called an e-foil or hydrofoil. There are several different names for it. And so we wanted to bring to the commission's attention, this is a new recreational use on Lake George. So our lieutenant has looked into this a little bit. He wants to give you a little bit of background, and then we'll talk about process after that. So, Joe? Joe, you're still muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, we've seen more use of e-foils and hydrofoils on Lake George. It is a new recreational use. We need to look into what regulations these specialty prop craft have to follow. So I reached out to New York State Parks and Recreation, and New York State considers these specialty prop craft. So there is a list of rules and regulations in the New York State navigation law that these have to follow. I'm just going to quickly go through some of those. The hydrofoils and e-foils have to have New York State registration. They have to have registration stickers and numbers. However, they can put them on, you know. The operator has to have a boater safety certificate to operate an e-foil. That's under New York State law. It's the same as a personal watercraft in a lot of these regulations, but it is specified separately in the navigation law that it's a special prop craft. If the owner allows someone else to operate it and that person doesn't have a safety certificate, both the operator can get a ticket for not having a certificate as well as the owner. The operator of an e-foil has to wear a personal flotation device, a life jacket. Under navigation law, they have to have a whistle and they have to carry a distress flag. If it's equipped with a lanyard, I haven't really seen them up close. I believe it's a handheld control that they have. So if it's not hooked to the vessel, it doesn't have to have the lanyard. But if it's equipped with a lanyard, it has to be used. Times are you can use them from sunrise to sunset under New York law. They may not operate within 500 feet of a swim area unless there is a launch right next to it, which they are accessing. So if they're going in and out of $1 Million Beach, they can go straight in and straight out, but they can't pass right in front of the beach, the same as a personal watercraft. And the same rules as far as jet skis, reckless operation, you know, weaving through congested traffic, things like that. I don't think we'll see that in small craft. Those are some of the rules that they currently have to follow. None of our personal watercraft rules from the commission would apply to these, just these New York State navigation law. We haven't really seen any problem with these e-foils, but it is new recreational use and we wanted to bring it to your attention for you to look into, you know, whether you feel it's safe and right for Lake George.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Chairman, I know we have at least one member of the community that would like to speak for a minute or two regarding e-foils. I believe we have Tom Hoffman here and perhaps someone else. Bruce, would you like these folks to speak, Bruce? Bruce's audio may be off. Maybe Tom, if you'd be interested in saying a few words.
Well, sure. I guess I kind of got interested in this process because during a short period of time, they were told to get off the lake for some reason, and I never heard exactly why. There was a concern, and I don't know if maybe Joe could bring up, you know, what was the reason, because I found it to be, you know, a very safe watercraft. I'm doing less boating and wake surfing because of it. I'm I have never used my jet ski less in a summer than this summer since using the e-foil. And, and I don't spend time in the middle of the lake. I'm usually along the shoreline where there's, less traffic and calmer water. They're dead quiet. They have no wake. They're actually surprisingly easy to learn how to use. And you may be aware, I also took a lesson from the local dealer down by Harris Bay. And that helped, the learning curve, but a lesson isn't really required to operate one of these. And again, the big thing is that they make no noise at all. I also happen to own a Jet surfboard, which is a 2-stroke, like about a 9 horsepower. It technically doesn't require a Lake George Park Commission sticker, but I have one on it, and I have it registered with New York State DMV. But that thing is noisier. It's a lot faster. If you ever looked on their website, the e-foil claims to go 30 miles an hour. That's really, I think, a sales gimmick. I think what they're basically saying is, a 12-year-old, 70-pound kid might be able to get it up to 30 miles an hour, but cruising along at 15 is the most comfortable and practical speed. So they're relatively slow watercraft, and I think all it's going to do is it's going to reduce PWC traffic and boating traffic, because when you're doing water sports on the lake and after you ride that thing for about an hour, and that's what it is, the battery lasts for about an hour, and it gives you a warning. You can see the battery life, and you make it back to your port fine. And it even has a limp mode where it goes back on at slow speed when the battery's below 5% charge, and then it charges in 2 hours. So it's been an incredible, incredibly fun new watercraft. And the other thing too is it was mentioned at the Queensbury Planning Board. It's not like there's going to be 1,000 of them on the lake. They're about $13,600 all in, including sales tax and shipping. So it's a hair less expensive than a new jet ski. So anyway, I just thought I'd clear that up. And again, I was kind of curious about getting them kicked off the lake for like 46 days is what it would have turned out. And I was, I emailed your executive director, and you guys, reversed that decision right away. So I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I think Mr. Queen, did you have your hand up? Wanted to speak on this?
Sure, and I'll echo Tom's comments. My children got me an e-foil for my 60th birthday. So they are absolutely silent and tremendously enjoyable. But the main thing is they're unobtrusive versus personal watercraft or traditional boat traffic. So I just wanted to say that I would encourage us to not ban them. I enjoy it tremendously, and I'm sure others will too. So thank you for allowing me to present, and thank you for bringing this up.
I believe there's one more, Mr. Arnstein. Mr. Arnstein, you're muted.
My name is Ted Arnstein. I have been associated with Lift E-Foils for the last 2 years. We have a company called AdirondackEfoils.com. We are providing e-foils to the Adirondack region for the patent holder Lift. There's 2 main companies that make e-foils, Lift and a company called Flightboard, who are out of Puerto Rico or out of Australia. So Lift is a preeminent manufacturer. As Tom pointed out, these boards retail for around $13,000. They're not for everyone. They typically, our core customer is a 40 to 55, 60-year-old doctor, lawyer, business owner who's looking to have a recreational vehicle on the lake. It what we have been providing and what Lyft has a very stringent program of safety. It's a whole process. We just don't take you out onto a board. What we do is we give you about an hour of instructional on our docks, teaching you the safety methods, how to stand up, how to ride the board, all the various aspects of the board. The boards weigh 90 pounds when they're fully loaded. The battery is about 35 pounds. The board's about 45 pounds. But we stress the safety, and we're looking to work with the Park Commission for even a certification if necessary, where people might have to take a course. We're prepared to do that. But it is completely electric. It's completely green, and it's the right move for Lake George. So I do appreciate the time, and I think this is a new, exciting sport. And as also Tom mentioned, this is typically, the board is used in the early morning hours when the lake is smooth, or the late afternoon. It's not a board that you go out and ride on a Sunday afternoon when there's 800 boats out. It's really more of a personal experience, similar to a paddle board, but let's say with a motor. You don't want to be out there when it's real rough. And again, any questions I can in the future, I'll be happy to be available. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't see anyone else with their hands up willing to speak. If you wanted to see if any commissioners had any thoughts or comments, and then our council and I could maybe give you a quick overview of the way we want to move forward.
The commission, any commissioners want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think to Mr. Hoffman's valid comment about being pushed off the lake or pulled off the lake or paddled off the lake, I think that maybe the Park Commission might have gotten caught behind the wave, so to speak. All of a sudden, the e-foils were here, and I certainly was unaware of them when they started. I was thrilled to death recently to learn that the state of New York already has some regulations to govern the use of e-foils and to protect the safety of the users and the bystanders. So forgive us for doing what we thought was right that day, and we're now here to go forward. And if they're here to stay, we will be involved as where we feel it's appropriate.
Joe, where's Joe?
If there's no other commission comments, I can begin a quick overview, and then Carla can jump in. So the commission has an obligation under our regulations to identify any new recreational uses on Lake George, evaluate those uses for any potential public impacts, and then move forward with the process for authorizing those uses on Lake George. We believe we have a method that would allow both public comments to be brought forward and responded to, and for the commission to move forward in kind of an umbrella fashion to authorize such use as it deems necessary. So Carla, maybe you can take us through how this is going to move forward.
Sure. So if the commission decides they want to move this forward as a new recreational use, the best thing to do would be to advise us that you'd like to do that now. We've reviewed the regulations under the navigation law. And if the board wants to go and add additional regulations, there's one process. If the commission decides that it can work with the regulations that are fairly substantial under the navigation law, the next step would be that we would place this out under seeker for notice and public comment in the environmental notice bulletin, have public comment come in, and then perhaps at the next meeting or the meeting after that, the commission has the ability to adopt a resolution that would allow, this was what Dave was saying, an umbrella resolution, to allow this as a recreational use, so that it's permitted as a recreational use, but each person does not have to come and get a separate permit. If that's how the commission wants to go forward with it, that's how we would move forward with staff and come to you with this resolution.
That sounds reasonable.
We need to make a motion to do that today, or do we just, you just take consensus that we want to move forward with this and we'll see where that takes us?
Well, it would be probably just a consensus at this point because the action would be the resolution that you're taking at the end. So if it's the consensus of the commission now that you are comfortable using the rules of the navigation law and you don't feel at this point it's necessary to have additional rules put in or additional regulations, then staff and I would work together to get the notice out to everyone and then connect and take all the public comments in. So there wouldn't be a necessity for a motion. You can do one if you want to, but it's not a necessity.
But I don't know. I think what we've heard about them is interesting. I think we ought to move forward. I don't think we ought to make a resolution at this point.
I agree.
I agree.
And
Yeah,
Mr.
let's-
Chairman, we will provide information to you shortly, and then we'll get it out into the environmental notice bulletin. And any comments received for or against will be recorded, responded to, and then we'll provide a resolution for your consideration, most likely at the November meeting.
Yeah, that works.
Just to be clear, does that mean that anyone can continue operating e-foil as long as they subscribe to the existing New York State regulations?
Yes.
That's what it means.
Okay, any further comments? Then we'll move on to Ken Parker and the septic system ad hoc committee. Do you have an update, Ken?
I think that I do, Chairman. As everyone is hopefully aware that the Park Commission has been actively involved in a septic committee, a septic system committee that we're working very hard and trying to take the lead on to determine the need for septic regulations, upgrading rules, standards, what communities are doing, how to coordinate the communities. We've had, I believe, 4 meetings with our in-house commissioners septic committee and a related 4 meetings by Zoom with what we're calling our ad hoc committee, which is interested partners that have volunteered to and have been invited to join the ad hoc committee. Plus, we do have a base of citizens who are faithfully attending our ad hoc committee Zoom meetings to offer their thoughts regards it. And the only way that I can really report is to highlight the minutes of our last meeting of September 14th. It's not too lengthy, and I hope I don't bore everybody too much. We had a discussion of about completing our New York State inspection program summary. We observed that 2 models of programs are in effect: internal inspectors doing the work versus hiring septic haulers as a third party. And so we spent some time discussing which one of those roads we eventually want to go down as we get involved, remembering that we're investing the time in the project so that when and if we come to regulations that are going to monitor the septic systems, new and existing, et cetera, it'll be a regulation that has to hold its own weight in the court system, et cetera. So we're planning on doing it once correctly. Another item we had was Shazen led us, our contractor, led us in a discussion on the status of the literature review of septic systems. We have studied as many septic system programs that we can find throughout the United States, into Canada, et cetera, et cetera. Our goal is to keep our regulations in line with the existing New York State Department of Health Appendix 75A, so that all the regulations are on a level plane. We talked about our ongoing GIS analysis of the Lake George sector population. It's amazing what our GIS folks can do as far as mapping individual properties and counting systems and counting lots. And it's just giving us a mind-boggling amount of information, but it's all what's going to form a basis of our decision. We had an overview of implementing a process of implementing the regulations. It was my question at the last meeting is how do we push the information we got over the hill and get it started on the downward slope for decision process. And Carla took us through that with the secret process and how we initiate and when we initiate the secret process and what we need to do as we do it, showing a full understanding of the topic and again to avoid outside challenges at the end. We discussed the timeline and deliverables of the projects. The commission would need a comprehensive understanding of the issue based on the work of the committee before making a vote to initiate a secret. At the commission's October meeting, it is anticipated that the commission staff, the Shazen, and our attorney will present on the preliminary research completed and note the intention to begin the secret process to vote in the following meeting. In November, it is anticipated that the full commission will complete the EAF and the outcome will decide whether to move forward with a formal GEIS in this timeline. The GEIS would likely begin in the winter of 2022. So we are not treading water, we're moving forward. We're learning a lot and next month will be another day. Any support for that, David or Carla?
But that was a great overview. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
I'll call on you again for a law enforcement report.
Okay, the Law Enforcement Committee met this morning at 9 a.m. and Lieutenant John brought us up to date on some boats, some boat issues. We actually had a very successful summer. I'd like to take a moment and just really highlight our relationship that our Marina Patrol has with the New York State Department of Parks and Recreation, which is the provider where we obtain our boats through purchase and through other negotiations. It's just been a good relationship and our boat capacity is doing very well. We then went into, yeah, okay.
Executive session.
Thank you. It just wouldn't come up. Executive session to discuss some ongoing enforcement actions and discuss those. Left executive session, and I have a resolution 2021-44, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met via teleconference September 28, 2021 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program. And whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and I present that as a motion.
It's been seconded by Bill Mason. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the Law Enforcement Report Committee, raise your hand. Opposed? It's carried. Now we've come to the public comments portion, and I'll turn it over to you, Justin, if there's anybody out there that wants to make a public comment.
Justin, Oh, Justin.
Oh, I'm here. I'm just looking to see. We've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 folks from the public. Would anyone like to make a comment? Most of you are muted.
Lunchtime.
I guess not. No comments.
No public comments, then I'm open for another motion.
Move to adjourn.
I see, we've had a motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Yeah, da, da.
And
Goodbye.
meeting is adjourned.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.